It is one of the most popular products in the U.S. An estimated 120 million people own an iPhone here in the country, and soon the cost of a new one could skyrocket, following President Trump threatening Apple with hefty tariffs on all devices.
All right, so that means it is time to bring in Queen City News Chief Business Correspondent Taylor Young.
And Taylor, the president's goal here is to get Apple to make its best-selling product in the U.S., but that doesn't come out with some major price hikes to try to make them feel the pressure, right?
Yeah, and these are products that already come with a steep price tag, right? The average iPhone today is between $500 and $1,200. Now imagine that price potentially tripling. I think we'd all go back to flip phones just as a way to be able to afford. So, but just to kind of recap how we got here, just last week, President Trump warned Apple executives that their products will face a 25% import tariff if they do not move manufacturing to the U.S. This comes a couple weeks after the company announced plans to move manufacturing of most iPhones to factories in India by the end of next year. The president said he'll implement the tariffs at the end of June on not just Apple products, but all smartphones made abroad, saying he thinks, quote, tech companies can afford to make their products in America. So this is once again the president really kind of pressuring another major corporation to tweak how it makes their products.
Well, so a lot of people would wonder, what exactly would that transition look like of bringing that from overseas to the U.S. as far as manufacturing?
I mean, it's a hefty haul. So in February, Apple did announce it would be investing $500 billion in the U.S. over the next couple of years. That also means building a new manufacturing plant in Texas. But even a $500 billion investment is really just kind of a drop in the bucket in terms of what would need to happen for Apple to 100% make its products in America. While Apple tends to be very secretive about how it makes its devices, it is estimated 90% of the phone is actually made and assembled in China, and over 1,000 components that go into making these phones come from countries really all across the world. So, it has been said by economists that the iPhone is kind of a quintessential representation of the global supply chain, considering it kind of dips in everywhere just to make that one product.
Let's say it is possible that it gets manufactured here in the U.S. What impact could that have on the already expensive price?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be fair to assume that someone would think, oh, made in America, that would mean that this would potentially be cheaper, right? Maybe less cost to kind of get those parts here. But there is a reason why Apple isn't, and other tech companies really aren't doing this already. It's estimated, if an iPhone were to be 100% made in America, it would potentially triple in price. It would, of course, also just take years before that would even be possible, because Apple would first have to make the manufacturing plants, which, as we know, can take upwards of 4 or 5 years. It'd have to overhaul its supply chain and find and train an entire new workforce. And on top of that, I mean, even just paying those workers and training them, this company would now have to pay American wages. So you take all those things together, experts estimate that this would dramatically increase the price of iPhone.
Well, Taylor, it's almost like the soup of the day. This week it's Apple, right?
Yeah.
But we've seen the pressure put on car manufacturers, toy manufacturers. Looking at the bigger picture here, how likely is it that political pressure is going to transform manufacturing as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, experts and supply chain experts are actually really skeptical that this is going to kind of make, a big dent in terms of companies kind of making this transition. And I think for the majority of companies, I mean, it would cost hundreds of millions, potentially billions of dollars to just build the infrastructure alone. And I think, when you're talking about these long-term investments, a lot of these companies and a lot of these CEOs right now are thinking, if I were to make this investment, how do I even know these tariffs are going to be here in 4, 5, 10, 20 years from now? So it's just a lot of that uncertainty. So whether or not this is going to actually have an impact on whether these products are going to be made here, and we're not just talking about iPhone, we've seen this with the car industry, toy companies also kind of feeling that pressure too. But I know we say this a lot, we're going to have to wait and see if companies actually do take this pressure and the tariffs seriously in terms of those long-term investments.
I'm just waiting on the iRetina, which is where they implant the cell phone into your retina, right into your eyeball.
$5,000.
I'm just saying, in the next 10 years, anything's possible. All right, thanks, Taylor. Appreciate it.